Hey there, and welcome to this week's edition of the Music Career Study Group. This is our weekly gathering of the artist community where we discuss topics, we get together, we exchange notes, we learn from one another. My name is Chris. My name is Kevin. My name is not Chris.
You know what, though?
Joining me is Chris.
I noticed you were really uncomfortable with the positioning, and you flipped them. So you're
That's
confused
what
about
I've got in my brain that
who we are.
I aspire to be Chris. That's the reality of it. My name is Kevin. Let's try that again. Over there is Chris. And you, like I said, are watching the Music Career Study Group. We have an enormous amount of people watching. So let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Say hi. Say where you're watching from. What part of the world. I saw we have Greece in the house. We've got Ghana. We've got Pasadena. We've got all sorts of places. And like I said, this is your time to ask questions, interact. You can ask questions of other people watching. You can tell success stories. Whatever you want to do, this is our time to be together and learn from one another. We have so many new people joining us today. I just wanted to, you may not know who myself or Chris is and who we are. So real briefly, just wanted to give you a quick rundown. My name is Kevin Bruner. I'm a guitar player, a songwriter, a music producer. My career band is a band called Small Town Poets. That's the one I've been in forever. And it's Grammy week, Chris. I was once nominated for a Grammy. That's my Grammy medal right there.
Oh,
and we also had a song on a platinum record.
I don't have one of those.
You should get one. It's fun. We're working on a collab, Chris, that I have high hopes for. I just sent Chris some tracks this morning or last night to for our first collab. That it's gonna go platinum easy.
It's guaranteed.
Anyway, Chris, tell us about yourself, where your background in music and all that.
Yeah, so my name's Chris Robley. I'm a singer-songwriter, a award-winning poet, published poet, put out a lot of music under my own name, Chris Robley, and I think we'll probably talk a little bit about some of our experiences marketing our own music and other people's music today. But what was I going to say? You and I have both also worked, I think, collectively for about 40 years in the realm of music distribution and music marketing. So
Correct.
There's definitely some business perspectives as well.
And wow, we have an amazing global audience. We've got Romania, South Africa, Colombia. We already mentioned Ghana. We got London. We got France, New York, Colorado. Yeah. Crazy. So this is the Music Career Study Group. We're here every week, Thursdays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, whatever time that is for you, wherever you are in the world. We are here. And today we are going to be talking about redefining music, successful music marketing. And Chris, I don't know about you, but it seems like there's a big sentiment in that most of the stuff we do to market our music, it feels like it either doesn't work or we're wasting time, or these platforms are constantly changing. And how do we even know what works? And ultimately, it seems like we get to this point where we're just frustrated and give up oftentimes. Does that resonate? Anyone in the audience resonate? If you can wave your hand or raise your hand if that sounds like what you're experiencing when it comes to marketing your music.
Well, I completely agree overall. And I'll also say it even can feel like that when your marketing is going well. Like, it's a lot of work. It can be sort of all consuming. It can eat up your creative brain, your time, your budget, all this stuff. So even when you are, quote, successfully doing it and finding results, it can still feel sort of depleting if you're looking at the wrong metrics. And so I know we're going to talk about that today. But I also feel like I see this out in the world on YouTube and Instagram, where almost every day people I'm following, artists I'm following, creators I'm following, are saying like, I quit. I'm resigning from social media. I'm not going to market myself in this way anymore. I'm gone. This isn't healthy for me.
You sent me one of those yesterday from an artist that you know and love. We've got the Ascension saying AI music farming bots to increase royalties. Yep, that seems to be something out there that people are trending towards in a negative way. That only hurts your music career when you do that. But shooting in the dark. Oh, this is an interesting one. Tay Daly said, yes, 14,000 followers on TikTok in 3 months, and now it's just dead. Yeah, that's another thing. It feels like these platforms, you build up an audience and then something changed and suddenly nobody sees what you're doing anymore. But we're going to dive into a lot of this today. But before we do, a reminder, you are watching the Music Career Study Group. If you would give us a thumbs up, a like this video, and share it, that would help us make this the biggest artist party every week, the internet. And that's something for us all to strive towards. So,
Yeah, and actually, one more question before we jump into the topic here is, how's our mic levels? We had a complaint last week that I was slightly too low. So can everyone hear us both? Should one of us turn up or down? Let us know.
Yeah. Please let us know. We are reading the comments. And if you have questions, feel free to drop it in as we go along. They're coming in fast. So if we miss it, it's okay if you repost your comment. It's hard for us to keep up. All right. We are going to dive in. And first, Chris, I think it's important for us to really set the table. Like, what does music marketing really mean? And I'm sure there's some people in there like, oh my gosh, they're really going to talk about this. But it's a important question, because I think a lot of artists, they are just taking random stabs in the dark. They're on social because we're supposed to be. They might occasionally throw an email out there, but they don't really know what they're doing or what the purpose is. And marketing is more than just promotion. It's the process of creating value, building connection, and meeting an audience needs. And I think oftentimes we approach marketing as artists just saying, stream my music, go do this, which one does not create any value. It's not building connections, and it's definitely not meeting anyone's needs. No one needs another person going, do this in their life. They just don't. We have plenty of those people in our lives. And as artists, our marketing should feel exciting. It should be interesting. Asking marketing answers questions like, what makes this music unique? Who is the ideal audience? When you market your music, it should be clear who you're talking to. What is your artist story and brand? That should very much be infused in your marketing. Otherwise, it's a missed opportunity, and also misses the point of like helping people identify with what you're doing. And ultimately thinking about, how can fans be led on a journey to a specific destination? Because ultimately we want them to do something as a result of our marketing.
Yeah. Well, that last point reminds me of a way I usually try to describe marketing to musicians. And that is that once you know what your story is as an artist, or the story of your music, marketing is a very intentional, deliberate action or activity that you take to tell a piece of that story in a compelling way to the right audience at the right time on the right platform or in the right medium, so that they do something specific for you. So they take an action that eventually, leads them on that journey you're talking about. But it is generally a intentional thing.
Yes. And in marketing terms, if you're reading marketing books or blogs or whatever, that sometimes gets called a call to action. Like, what do you want people ultimately to do? And I think it's important to recognize that. And Chris, you thought this was sort of a controversial statement when I said it. I think we reworded it a little bit, but marketing is a means to an end. It makes people fall in love with your music. I think originally I wrote something like, it's not the thing, the music is the thing. But I think the point is that when you see marketing, talk about music marketing, the ultimate goal is to get people to fall in love with your music. And there's a lot of ways to make that journey to that point. But if you just find that all you're doing is sitting on social media doing random crap all day long, chances are that's not real marketing, because it's not pointed at anything. You're just wasting time. And Chris, I know I've fallen into that trap many times. I'm like, what am I even doing?
Yeah, it just becomes a habitual thing that you feel like you should do because you've been told 1,000 times by other music marketing gurus that, yeah, wasting that time on social is quote marketing. So you're like scratching something off a list. But I think when I pushed back on this slide a little bit, it says marketing is a means to an end. When I said, well, that's not entirely true for me, what I meant, to just be clear, is that if marketing starts with you telling a part of your story, that shouldn't necessarily feel separate from the music. Because I feel, maybe this is an assumption, but I feel like when I was a kid and dreamed about making music, and having people enjoy it. Part of that dream was getting to talk about it or getting to get it out there in cool, interesting ways where people want to hear what you have to say. So that was the piece of me that's like, this really is a creative activity. It's not a business activity only. It can be part of the dream that we have to just tell our story well.
Absolutely. Chris, there's some comments that your mic is now a little bit quiet. So
oh, geez.
We really wish
overcompensated.
Yeah. Great song by 21 Pilots, Overcompensate. But anyway, StreamYard really needs some level meters things in it. We're using StreamYard, so we apologize. We'll get it right. Anyway, I've got a new track dropping tomorrow, Chris. And for me, under my solo artist name, Red Machine, I do a lot of instrumental stuff and I even sing on a few tracks. But for me, that really is like the marketing piece is an extension of the creativity. Like I've got this vision for what this artist brand is about. And for me, the marketing piece is just this fun expression of that artist's story that ultimately is intended to bring people into the music. If it's just there to shout at them, then that's just really a waste of time. And nobody's going to have fun doing that.
Siberiak is praising the magic that lives inside our phones these days in terms of creative tools.
Welcome to the 21st century.
Yeah. Some of these we may hit upon in more detail as we go through this talk, but is spending money on marketing or ads necessary for promotion? Can it be done somehow for free? I think, yes, it can be done for free, but in order to do it for free, you have to kind of make up for that lack of budget with a whole lot of persistence and super talent and creativity. So,
yeah. All right. Oops. My slides. All right, here we go. All right. Here's the big problem we're all facing when it relates to marketing. Artists have reoriented their marketing efforts around platforms and algorithms. And it was mentioned in the comments, several other people might have said something, but we brought up the one that mentioned bots. And so there's some bad habits that have happened because we see that 0 or no number next to Spotify, less than 1,000, that we start thinking, crap, I really got to focus on that Spotify number. And that becomes the focus. And how do I get the algorithm to recognize my music? How do I get the algorithm to push my music? What does this platform want to see? And from that equation, not once did I mention, what do fans want to hear? What will resonate with them? What will make one person push the play button and love this song forever? We've reoriented ourselves around things that aren't people, that don't love our music, that things that ultimately are just chasing vanity metrics that don't matter, because at the end of the day, the Spotify number is a result of people interacting with your music. It's not just a number that sits there that's randomly put there because you did something.
Yeah, well, a good question, I think, that we should ask ourselves around these things. You said vanity metrics. That's a number that means something to your ego because it's publicly viewable. So you want those Spotify numbers to be high so you don't look, like a sad musician who doesn't have their music consumed by real fans. I get that. The question I think people should ask themselves is, would I behave differently if this number wasn't visible to the public? If no one could see how many streams you had on Spotify, would you spend all of your time worrying about Spotify? If you had a budget for ads, you may spend it on things that drive ticket sales or vinyl purchases, or even just someone to get on your email list. There's a lot of things you would probably prioritize differently if you weren't worried about that ego boost and that vanity metric.
Yes, exactly. And Chris, we're still getting calls. They just want more of you. Turn that mic up. You must have some really sensitive knobs there. It goes
Maybe
from.
So. See if that's any better.
Ooh, it's nice. It's real nice.
There was an interesting comment up here. Where was it? Oh, with social media coming and going, I believe mailing lists of your hardcore fans is more important than short form content and short form connections.
Absolutely. In fact, if you do not have a mailing list, I think before we dive into the next section where we get into some tangible things, it's important, more important than ever. If you haven't learned anything from the TikTok ban, it's, apparently if your phone, which my phone, it has TikTok installed on it, they're going for like $30,000.
Wow. I should sell mine.
I know, because
right away,
because it's not available to download currently. But if you haven't learned anything, that is that you need to own the relationship with your fan, and email is still the best way to own that relationship. In fact, that message that you sent me yesterday by an artist that you follow, Chris, it's like, I'm done with social media. They've specifically pointed to, I will still be using my email list because that's where my hardcore fans want to hear and read about me, and I think have a deeper in-depth experience than just scroll, 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 nice, scroll, scroll, scroll,
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's something, not only in light of owning the relationship, but these platforms come and go. You have a big audience on TikTok right now. Even if it stays relevant, it might go out of popularity 3 years from now, and that fan base is gone.
Yeah.
They're left behind. And so you need to be actively working to own that relationship. All right. I think it's really important that we recognize that the value of music is so much bigger than stream counts. Data does not define you as an artist, and I need everyone to hear that.
What? Crazy.
Chris, it's true. Data does not define you as an artist. If you're just starting out, if the beginning of your journey, your musical journey, of course your numbers are going to be low because you're just starting out. But even a music career is this point in my life, I can tell you that a music career has its highs and lows, no matter who you are. Even the people at the top aren't always at the top. They go away for a while. They lay low for a bit. It has an ebb and flow. And sometimes they may feel like they may never write another song again. It's just one of those things. The creative process isn't just reflective of our output, and who we are as artists is not defined by that data. Music is about joy, connection, and lifelong growth. For me, that's one of the things I really recognize, that this is a lifelong pursuit. You're going to have to pull my guitar out of my cold, dead hand, because I'm going to keep writing and recording until I die. And Chris, the mystery and mastery one is something that you mentioned that I put on the list that I thought was interesting.
Oh, yeah, and I could go on a little tirade here for a second, but the CEO of Suno, the AI music company, was recently quoted in an interview saying, music is just too hard to make. People who make music, the majority, I think the quote was something like, the majority of people who make music don't enjoy it the majority of the time. And I was like, that's BS. The difficulty is why it's worth doing. The skill building, the working towards mastery, the dream, and that thing of like, I can't quite do it, but I'm working. Oh, I got it. Like, if you just press a button and it's all easy, what is that worth? And I think that CEO in that particular quote kind of missed a huge portion of what the point is of any difficult endeavor. And so the mystery and the mastery is part of why we keep coming back to it, even if the metrics aren't there, the vanity metrics.
Yeah, to me, it's one of those things that you never know when something's going to happen with music. That's what keeps me excited and energized. You never know if that next idea is going to hit. And the excitement in the creation process. I mean, how dare he say that nobody likes making music? That's the best part. Like when you're struggling with something and then it just clicks. I had a track I was working on for at Christmas where that was the case. I was like, ready to throw away my guitars because nothing was working. And then I thought, it's because it's not a guitar part. What if I put this on a synth? And suddenly this explosion of creativity happened. And I felt like I had reached new creative heights in my own personal journey. And I didn't care if anyone else heard it. It was like, I was just pumped that the idea, that mystery and that magic that happens when you create music, and how it can evolve in your personal journey and growth, and feeling very empowered, like it says on the screen. And lastly, on this screen, there's a lot of you watching that are excelling in areas that the industry just isn't prioritizing. They're clearly prioritizing stream counts. They're clearly prioritizing social following. But what if you're an amazing live show that people come and pack out venues to see because it just has to be experienced live?
I was just going to say, I remember my mind was blown, I don't know, like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when we first started seeing a whole industry spring up around house concerts. Because for me, success looked like selling out a 2,000 seat theater or, a 300 capacity rock club or whatever it is. There's this official pathway that looks cool and sanctioned by the industry. And yet all the musicians I knew who were actually making a living didn't play clubs at all. They were all playing house shows to 20 people a night and selling a bunch of merch to those people, and a high ticket value for that sort of intimacy and access. And that's not a metric that the industry looks at all. For a lot of those artists who are making a full-time living in house shows, it's like they're not real artists according to industry standards. And that's nonsense.
Yeah. Captain Charlie has a good comment here. Longevity also comes from building a fan base over time. Artists that get big in quick, cheap, viral ways typically fade away in obscurity. Artists truly build community last. This is incredibly important. Captain Charlie is correct. That's probably why they're the captain, because we've seen. I think that's another phenomena that we've seen, and the struggle that artists feel for that, chasing that social virality that ultimately doesn't really build anything. We've seen it more and more. Like, yes, your music may get spread, but did it really build any true fans? And I think that's one of the weird things about the social phenomena. Another person asked a comment about, like, how do we pull fans off an email list or off of social for an email list? We'll get into some ideas for that in a second, but
real quick before we move on, pertinent to this slide, Joseph is saying, absolutely, I'm 66, still creating music. It's the biggest fun in my life.
Absolutely. It's fulfilling. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel empowered, excited. It brings joy.
Making music beats going to a shrink.
There you go. There you go. All right. So ultimately, it's time to redefine music marketing success around metrics that matter. We've mentioned some metrics that we say the industry is prioritized that may not matter to us as independent artists. Stream counts, of course, we all want stream counts, but there are some better metrics to look at that show that we're moving forward. And, social stuff that we've talked about, but let's talk about some metrics that matter. And I think the first one that gets overlooked at all aspects of our musical endeavors is engagement. And I think it's important that you focus on true engagement as a measure of success. It's not about reaching everyone. It's about connecting with the music and people with the music that resonates. I think, Chris, this is one of those things where artists, we've just been wired to overlook real engagement where it happens. We've all played that show that in a room that held 200 people, but 100 people showed up or 50 people showed up. And we're like, well, only 50 people showed up. And I'm like, we're discrediting the 50 people that are there, engaging, right, participating. We do that on social. It's like, well, I did this campaign and only 10 people commented. Like, well, interact with those 10 people. That engagement is an indicator that you moved them to some degree. So look at that as you're onto something. That's a spot to start digging in and knowing that something here is working. Ask them questions.
Yeah, and I actually think that sort of ratio or proportionality, I don't know how you want to call it, but basically for the amount of attention this got, how much true engagement and enjoyment did it bring about? If you shared a video and 100 people saw it, you might think, oh, only 100 people saw it. But if 10 people commented, that's actually a really successful, to get back to the idea of this marketing thing, and success, that's pretty successful engagement. 10 commenters for 100 views, that's great. So I think instead of looking at that first number, look at the number of engagements per that number to kind of guide you forward and keep you motivated.
Yeah, I know that up on the screen, true is not highlighted, but it should be true engagement. We're not talking about engagement farming, which is a term that has popped up in the last handful of years where people are just doing things that's kind of spammy or clickbaity or asking, questions that get people all riled up just so they'll pile in and comment. We're talking about true engagement around the things that matter with your artist story, with your musical journey, with the brand of your music. Another important engagement metric to look at is watch time over views. We oftentimes look at views and think, man, I posted that video on YouTube and it got 20 views. That sucks. But then you look at it and like half of those people watched the whole video. Mm-hmm. That means whoever those people were, they were all in on what you're doing. You can go find lots of videos on YouTube that have millions of views, and most of those views probably didn't get past the 5-second mark. that means it wasn't real engagement. It wasn't true engagement. Those people didn't care. Somehow they saw the video, but it didn't resonate. It didn't matter to them. So watch time, way more important.
Captain Charlie's saying busking is a great form of engagement that's outside of the usual metrics that get measured. If you can get someone's attention as a total stranger who doesn't know your story, that's real success. And that kind of reminds me, busking is sort of the live performance equivalent of what people are doing on scrolling on TikTok or Instagram Reels. Like, if you get someone to stop because your video is interesting and engaging enough and they're a total stranger, that's a big success as well. Just like if you can get someone to stop walking to the coffee shop to pay attention to one of your songs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Another one on the list is tickets sold versus room capacity. I think oftentimes we compare ourselves to other artists, the size of room we think we should be playing, the size room they're playing, and then we sell tickets and we're like, well, that's not where I want to be. But it's like, look, everybody's journey is unique, and everyone's on their own journey that's going to have a different timeline. It's going to have different success points. And so comparing yourself to other artists arbitrarily just isn't helpful, because ultimately the point of all this is to look at the things that are indicators that our music career is moving forward, that something is working. And then once we find those things that are working, we pour fuel on those things to drive more activity and increase the results we get. And that's why, we talked about stream counts earlier, getting away from just looking at Spotify for artists. Oh man, my stream counts, they're not where I want them to be. Well, ultimately, we're probably all wanting them to be where Taylor Swift's stream counts are. Until then, we're going to be dissatisfied. So it's like, look at those things that indicate where there's things that are working. I know as artists, we're not one typically to like crunching data, but when you look at your data and find those things and look at through that lens, it becomes easier to spot the trends. Like, oh, something happened here that worked. Mm-hmm. Now I have an idea. I've got more creativity to unleash on that problem or that area of where I've been engaging. Chris, I don't think we have a slide for it, but you have a case study that I think would be helpful for everyone listening about what you're doing around a specific engagement metric and how you're using that as an indicator for success as opposed to stream counts and all these other arbitrary things.
Yeah, so I guess I'll ramble for a bit and just stop me if you need to clarify something. But in my own life, I'm trying to get better at doing things that can feed multiple objectives. And so it's essentially, if I'm going to do something, I want to make sure I can get more than just that thing done with it. I also found myself in a spot where I've got a daughter who's 12. I own a home. You and I have professional lives. There's just a lot keeping me from the old musical life I have of, gigging whenever I wanted and going on long tours. And so I was really feeling disconnected from performance and just that skill or confidence of singing into a mic. And even just physically, people who sing probably know what it's like to go 6 months without it. It's like you start feeling, I don't know, scrunched in or something. So I said, hey, I need to start live streaming again. I can't go on tour. I can still gig once in a while, but I can't be, gigging 5 times a week. I'm going to do a weekly live stream. I'm going to do it for a year, no matter who shows up, because I need it first and foremost for me. I need to use my voice again. I'm going to do it every week. And I did. I went live. And I think that first time, like 25 people tuned in. And it fluctuates. I think today I had maybe 15 people tuning in at any one time. What's that called again? Concurrent views or something?
Yes.
So these aren't like incredible numbers. I'm not trying to position this as like a massive success story. But what I did when I started this is I said, I'm going to do it no matter what. However, I would like within a year, when I'm still doing this in a year, I want 75 simultaneous viewers. That's my goal. So now I have set a goal and a benchmark with which I can measure my incremental progress towards that goal. So, went live the first time, it was 25 people. It starts going down. I think to myself, okay, what portion of this is in my control? What can I do to change? I I polled my audience about an ideal time, what the ideal format was, the best platform. They were super responsive and gave me some helpful things. I'd take requests in order to prompt comments and engagement. I included this little series segment where if you have a strange fact, but from history or science or whatever your geeky obsession is, you can put it in the comments and I will read it in real time and spin it into like an improvised song and sing what you've written in the comments as the lyrics. So that's been fun, and I feel like it makes it something people feel like they can participate in. They can request things. It's sort of like I want them to feel like they're in the driver's seat as much as I am. And that's been, like I'm nowhere near my goal yet, but I'm feeling better, more progress. There's, a small community of people who show up every week and talk to each other. So that's been great. But not only that, doing this thing that I'm committed to doing every week now gives me a reason to write my email list. I used to just neglect my email list for months at a time. And now I'm like, oh, it's Thursday. Got to write my list. And through that, I'm hearing back from people. So this bigger dialogue's happening. I'm hearing from people sort of proactively about songs of mine that they like because I'm simply reminding them that I'm there and I exist. And it's been great. And then maybe this is obvious, but after you've done a live stream, there's content. You can chop it up. You can share it as a TikTok or an Instagram reel. There's a lot of things you can do after the fact as well, instead of it just being this dead piece of content.
We're going to break this down a little bit because there's some highlights that I want people to understand what you did and the little brainstorm you and I had after you said that you were going to be doing this. But first, you're watching the Music Career Study Group. A lot of people have jumped in. We have a huge audience today. Thank you for everyone for coming out. We're here every Thursdays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. We're talking redefining successful music marketing, and would love for you to give us a thumbs up or like or share anything that would help other artists find this. And, so the bosses know that people actually are watching and let us keep doing this. But Chris, I think you undersold some of your marketing genius here, and we're going to talk about SMART goals. If you haven't heard about SMART goals before, it's something that gets thrown around in the corporate world, but it's clear goals are the foundation of any great marketing plan. And we talked about at the top about how people were just taking stabs in the dark. We've been told by all these marketing gurus, oh, you got to be on social. And then we go to social and we're like, we don't know what we're doing. And we're the platforms are constantly changing. It feels like we're just chasing our tails. And it's like, I wanted to make music and write and record and make music and that be what I do. I wasn't planning on being a TikTok influencer. And if that's the route you go, that's fine. That's not a problem. But ultimately, a lot of times with our marketing, what's missing is SMART goals. That's specific, clearly define what you want to achieve, measurable, making sure progress can be tracked. Oftentimes we make things that we just can't track whether or not it's working, and that's a problem. Achievable, it needs to be realistic. Now you can have your dream goal. I want to sell out. I want to beat the Eras tour for the highest grossing tour ever. That's fine. That's a big dream goal, but you need some achievable goals that you can take action on and make sure that you are taking steps to build your career. They need to be relevant. They need to align with your goals and bigger vision. I was in a band once where we looked around at each other and said, you know what? We said we wanted to be this thing to be about writing for sync licensing and sync placements, which we did get quite a few. But we're doing this playing live and booking shows. That wasn't really what we said we set out to do. Why are we doing that? So even just making sure they're relevant they line up with your vision and time bound. So Chris, in your thing here, your live stream, you had a specific goal. I'm not sure you stated it as clearly as you could have, but like you wanted to get 75 continuous people by the end of the year. So specific and time bound.
Yep. 75 simultaneous viewers within a year.
Yeah. And it not just once, like you peaked and then, but
as an average. Yeah.
So that's time bound, specific. I think it's achievable. Your list size tells me it's achievable, and your sphere of influence. It's measurable, and it's relevant. And so once Chris told me that, he and I were talking, and here's how you approach these types of things and how it becomes a creative exercise and not just doing what somebody told you to do, a marketing guru, just going through the motions. Chris and I were talking about like, okay, how are you going to get to that 75 person point? And, you mentioned some of the things that you were doing to make it more interactive so people feel it's fun, it's engaging. But then I started saying, but Chris, it doesn't need to be all about you. You get to host the party.
Mm-hmm.
Bring on other artists that have bigger audiences or sizable audiences, and have a guest artist every so often that can join you on the live stream. And now you're maximizing audience reach. You're reaching new people. You're getting more people to the live stream, and ultimately seeing yourself as a community host. You're the host. You're the leader of a community of these people that love a certain type of music, that love getting together weekly to have fun, interact, and it's a nice diversion from their day at work. And suddenly it's like you and I just started riffing on ideas, and it's like we could have gone on for hours,
Right.
because we had these SMART goals that were all measurable, achievable, realistic, and specific. So now the creativity can explode around that on how to solve a problem, because it's solvable. And I'm really excited to see what you accomplish over the course of the year.
Yeah, me too. I'll just say one more thing about it, that the point of this wasn't to have like a marketing vehicle, but one positive outcome of doing something like this that's regularly scheduled and interactive is that now I have a weekly outlet that is sort of interpersonal to sell things. If I put out a new single, what a great way to share it. It just makes sense to kind of do a little blurb, or not a commercial, but play the song in my live stream, talk about it. Anytime I have a flash sale or a coupon code for merch or it's an instant time slot that I control to get that message out there. So someone was asking how long. I generally live stream for an hour. When I polled my audience, that's what they kind of wanted anyways, but it also just fits in with my being able to do it at all, because it kind of has to be during my lunch hour.
Yeah. Something you said when you were describing the marketing activity, not once did you say stream counts, social performance, but all those things are a byproduct of this. If you are doing this live stream and it's growing, like you said, you have a new track, of course, all those people are going to go stream it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, when you have a merch drop, these people are going to be interested in buying it. And so it becomes this thing that the activity is fun and engaging, and all the things that we want to see happen with our music just happen naturally because you've created this fun community event, not because you shouted at people to go stream your track a million times.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Up next, we got to move a little quicker through these because we don't have a ton of time left. And if you got questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. Chris will keep popping them up, and I'll keep popping them up as we go along. But the next one is impact. And one of the things that I think artists hardly ever measure as a success metric is the impact their music is having on other people. Like, how can you impact the world around you? Music is a powerful force in our world and can have a big impact, even with a small reach. Is your music doing more good than you're giving it credit for? I remember I was listening to a podcast and Gary Vee was on being interviewed. And Gary Vee is one of those marketing guru people that I sometimes roll my eyes at because he can make it oversimplified. Oh, just go do this and it'll work. I'm like, okay, whatever. But he had a great point where he was talking about you just need to show up and you need to keep communicating with your audience because you never know who's in your audience. And he was talking to a podcaster, so he's referring to a podcast. He said, your podcast might only have 50 people in it, but you don't know who those 50 people are. That person could be the head of some major company that's about to recommend you for something, or that person, relating it to music, could be a booker, a club booker. It could be a music supervisor that's like, I really dig this artist. I want to license one of their tracks. You don't know who's in your audience. And so the idea is understanding that you have impact and don't overlook that impact. And the size of your audience does not diminish. If you have a smaller audience, does not mean your impact is diminished. It just means you have impact on a smaller select group of people. And that's something that you should really be thinking about and considering in your marketing efforts as a metric for success. Does your music bring people together? Does it capture and define a particular moment in time? Like there's been multiple tragedies recently where I'm sure many people have sought out the comfort of music and some of their favorite artists just to, you know, bury their grief in. And can it support communities that you care about? Have you asked your fans how the music has impacted them? I think this is a big one, that this kind of content is so rich and so powerful from a marketing perspective, because it's other people speaking about your music, how it's changed their lives, or how it brings joy and excitement, how they love to party to it, how nothing's better than driving down the road 100 miles an hour blasting this song. Those kind of things are gold when it comes to marketing.
Yeah, one interesting thing you pointed out is I think it takes a lot for artists to go and ask their fans these sorts of questions, because you're saying like, hey, I hope it's moved you. Can you now please tell me? So you're sort of putting you're sort of putting yourself out there on the one hand, but the other reality is you may never hear from people. This is sort of a sad thing about this, is your music can have immense life-changing impact on people that you never hear from. And then that's one of those other weird things of like, in a way, that's not measurable because you don't know about it, and yet it's priceless.
Yeah, and I have a story of that very thing. A couple years ago, we were doing a summer tour, and we had a house date in between two of our shows, you know, while we were crossing the Appalachian Mountains. It was literally a house in this amazing view over the mountains. And there was about 40 people there. We knew this person was a fan because they brought us in. We just had emailed our email list saying we're looking for a date to fill in between two shows. If anyone wanted to have us for a house show, let us know. And someone reached out, booked it. That's all we knew. We get there, we play our set. I think I mentioned there's about 40 people there. It was a great house show. They did an excellent job putting it together. And afterwards, the host tells us, hey, you know, before you guys go, I need to tell you something. I'm like, oh crap, what did we do? Who broke something? Yeah. So then we're like, oh man. He's like, I really need to tell you something. My favorite song, and he tells us what his favorite song of ours was. And we didn't play it in the set. It wasn't in the set that day. And he said, that's my favorite song, but I need to tell you something. And it got real heavy. He said, it was a while ago. It was like 5 or so years prior. He was getting his doctorate and all this life stuff was happening. And he said, I was going through the darkest time of my life, like really dark. And I thought there was no hope and no way out. But your song, it carried me through. Your song got me through the darkest days of my life. I was listening to it on repeat, and those words were just resonating with my soul. And I need you to know that. And we were just completely blown away. We're all like crying at that point. And then everyone had left the show except for his family. And we sat there and we all played it and sang it together, all of us, including his family. And it was just one of those moments where you're like, wow, I've played some massive shows. I played stadiums. I've played arenas. I've played to very large crowds. And a lot of that stuff is sort of forgettable over time. But stuff like that resonates with me as an artist, and I'll never forget. And it's like, that feels like success to me. That is something that is an indicator that our music has power and is doing good in the world. And that's a success metric that should not be overlooked.
Choked up. Lady Shay Music is agreeing here. The best compliment I ever received from a listener was a simple, genuine thank you for making this song.
Yeah. And those are the things that as artists, it's like, that's why it's good to just, you know, you don't want to go overboard with like, how have I improved your life? But giving fans that vehicle to communicate in that way is important. And it's a reminder that music is more than just stream counts. It's like little messages of hope into people's lives. And oftentimes we're so distracted by, well, what are my numbers? Where am I at? Did we do more than yesterday? That we forget that these things penetrate deep into people's souls. And it's very powerful. And man, after that, I was so jacked up of like, man, I just can't wait to make more music, because those things, hearing that we caused that in someone's life, it not only is a great feeling, but it feels very important. It's important work to be doing. I will say that if you do ask your fans for this kind of feedback, that you let them know if you're going to share it on the internet, or, like if someone bears their soul to you, the artist, and then you're like, hey, thanks for that content, I'm just going to plaster that everywhere. Yeah, that's something to make sure that you're not, you're treating those stories with delicate gloves, because they are precious.
Yeah, there's a lot of people commenting with similar experiences where audience members really resonated with their music.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing. All right, next up, and this kind of off the back of that one, we're talking about fan-centric activity. And really what this is getting your audience to do things with your music. Unleash the creativity of your fans. Music marketing has seen a dramatic shift where big moments happen by allowing others to use your music in their own ways. In fact, I was doing a search for some of the biggest viral music moments, which it's really hard to actually find. There's not really and no one's really cataloged all
the
that.
Centralized chart of virality.
Yeah. There is like the Hot 100 on TikTok, but it doesn't tell you, like, you can see those on Spotify, but it doesn't tell you why. And if you think about that, the Fleetwood Mac song, that the dude on the skateboard drinking ocean spray, nobody even can understand or explain why that worked. It just worked. And so oftentimes it's stuff like that where people are doing something with your music that really drives great marketing activity. So thinking about that, make it easy, provide stems, remix packs, or instrumental versions. Think ahead about what's coming up. Tap into holidays, trends, and cultural moments. I'll talk about trends in a minute, because I'm not talking about social trends specifically. And oftentimes this gets called user-generated content. So leveraging user-generated content, that's just your fans, and share and celebrate fan-made covers, videos, and remixes, and then engage directly with them. Like respond, collaborate, build community, like things you can do that are easy. On my band's YouTube page, I've got a playlist of just covers that I find of other people doing of our songs, and I'll go comment on them, and just trying to encourage that activity. But on the trends front, and this somebody asked earlier, like, how do I get people off social onto my email list? One of the things I did for my band is, it was the second year, like it was 2021. We were all in that pandemic malaise, not doing as much and seeing people as much. And adult coloring books became a big thing. And that was just a trend that I noticed. There's a lot of people with like buying and selling adult coloring books, because people are bored sitting at home and they just want to do something that feels creative. And I thought, that's interesting. And then we also had a live album that was completed, but we hadn't released. I'm like, this is the perfect time to release a live album when we can't do shows. So in order to promote the live album, I thought what would be amazing is to do a coloring contest. And in order to sign up, people give us their email address to download the PDF that was a coloring sheet. It was a thing I made that it was basically the album art, but you got to color it. And then we would share all those submissions online, and people had to post them and tag us, and we'd share them. And it just became a great engagement piece. One, to get people off social media, so we own their email address. Two, it was something fun that they got to participate in. And a lot of those people were listening to our tracks and our songs while they were coloring. So it was a way to engage with the band when there was no live shows. And it was just something fun to do and share, and have the fan community speak instead of us. And that was one of those things that I thought was a good example of like unleashing the creativity of your fans based on a trend that I just happened to see happening out there in the world.
Yeah, I'm thinking on this topic, there are artists like Taylor Swift or Lizzo, these very big artists who can intentionally seed a trend, or, suddenly there's a million user-generated videos using their new hook or whatever. And there's genius behind that. Like they're picking the right thing. They're fine, but they're also massively famous, right? So that in a way, some of their music was going to be unleashing fan creativity no matter what. So when it comes to independent artists who have smaller fan bases, a lot of times it comes down to simply telling your fans, giving them permission, and asking them to do something with your stuff. So if you have stems available to be remixed, like you need to be telling people, hey, you can remix my song. Here's the tracks. If you want them to, hop on a viral trend using one of your sounds, like tell them that that's a thing to do, because fans don't always know. They may know that they can do that with Taylor Swift. They may not think of it or may not know they have permission to do that with a lesser known musician. So give them permission and clear, not instructions, but, clear encouragement.
Yeah. Audiences need to be directed. When you have the superstars that we see out there, at a percentage basis, a lot of their very diehard active fans aren't, on a percentage basis, isn't that big. It's just that they're starting from such a giant pool of fans that there's still a groundswell of people doing this activity. So a lot of times you got to let them know. And oftentimes as independent artists, there's this respect. They don't want to feel like they're crossing a line or doing something that would hurt you financially or maybe make you grumpy, where with superstars, oftentimes people are like, I don't care. They're not real people. That's how.
Let's see. We've been called out for mentioning Taylor Swift 3 times, and then someone's corrected the record. It's actually been 4. I don't know if were we talking about someone who looks unhealthy, or do one of you or I look unhealthy?
I don't know. I saw that. I'm like, dang, I hope it. I've been eating right, taking care of myself. I mean, if you knew how old I was, you'd probably be like, damn, he's doing good.
Yeah. And then I was going to bring this one up too. Barry, live version, totally great thing to do. There's been this concept of active release strategies over the past year or so, where, you may put out a single or an album, but then you follow it up with all this sort of, that's not exactly bonus content, but it's additional audio content that refers back to the story of the original release. And live versions can be another kind of that thing to do, as well as demos and alternate mixes, sped up versions.
Yeah. We have this does not count towards the count, but there may be a Taylor Swift count. But how many times have we said that you are watching the Music Career Study Group? This is brought to you by Reverb Nation, and you may have recognized Chris and I from a different music distribution platform, an old crusty distribution platform. We are doing some exciting new things that I thought a press release was dropping today. Maybe it got pushed to next week, but there's some exciting things happening here at Reverb Nation. And if you want to follow along, people dropped our handles were in the chat on social, but Reverb Nation does distribution. You can do just a la carte distribution, or if you're a Reverb Nation premium member, you get unlimited music distribution. You get great support. You can always find Chris and I. We are not the support team, but we're more than happy to help people and get them to the right folks that can. It's really good.
And stay tuned, because there's some new exciting developments coming soon.
Yeah, and ultimately, we're getting near the end of this, but the formula for authentic growth, because we're looking to...
Sorry, can I interrupt you
Yes.
on the top while we're talking about Reverb Nation?
Okay, yes.
And some of the changes, this person wants to know what the relationship to BandLab is. Do you want to...
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got all tangled up in my cable here, like I'm about to fall over and trip myself. Yes, we are sister companies. So Chris and I work for BandLab Technologies. So you might see me do appearances for BandLab. I was just at the NAMM show last week, speaking on behalf for BandLab. BandLab Technologies is BandLab, Reverb Nation, Airbit, which is a beat marketplace similar to Splice, and Cakewalk. So if you're familiar with any of those companies, you might see our faces. You most likely see it around Reverb Nation at this time, or BandLab. But Chris writes content for both blogs and both companies. I'm doing things for both companies, and but we're really excited about what we're doing with Reverb Nation. BandLab Technologies acquired it a couple years ago, and we're turning it into something great and new and exciting. And so we're kind of getting towards the end, but one thing I want to point out is that the whole point of like these metrics that I mentioned, true engagement, the impact your music is having, what your fans are doing with the music, all these things are the formula for authentic growth. It's easy to go buy fake streams. I don't recommend it. Your account will get pulled down. Your music will be banned from the platforms, but it's real easy to do that. It's real easy to try and game the system, to chase algorithms. And at the end of the day, you're left with nothing. Sure, you may have some inflated numbers, but at the end of the day, in your heart, in your soul, you know that those aren't fans listening to your music, and that was meaningless. And what we're looking for is the formula for authentic growth. So true engagement plus an impact mindset plus fan-centric marketing equal authentic connections. And Chris, you said something that I thought was a great way to sum this up when we were talking about it. You're like, this is happening when fans start reaching out unprompted because the music truly resonates. And that's, I think, a really good indicator that these things are working when people start seeking you out to tell you, hey, this meant something to me, or I'm here because I love your music,
Yeah, and for me, that started to happen again when I simply made a plan to be available and active again. I do this thing every week. I let you know beforehand. I may chop it up for content later, but all of that is simply just more access and presence that reminds them to enjoy the music they like and let me know about it. So I've been hearing a lot more, particularly by email, which is interesting because I'd let email again kind of be dormant for way too long.
Yeah. And email is people still ask, is email still worth it? Absolutely. It's where people still buy stuff and they read stuff. It's kind of almost become like an ID marker. Like people keep the same email address. They have to use it to log into everything. And it's where all their bills get sent. So, all right, we're going to close out with this and to create successful marketing habits, but I'm going to do this. I've never done this before. I'm dropping a link in. I've got a song dropping tomorrow. You guys get to hear it first. It's already on YouTube. It's a little music production project I've been working on called Red Machine, and I'm having the time of my life recording and writing for it. So you can check it out there. That's what I've been working on. But creating successful marketing habits. Sustainable growth comes from consistent, intentional actions. Focus on what truly drives your music forward. So focus your efforts. We already talked about clear goals. If you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, start there. What would be helpful for you? Is it, hey, it'd be helpful is doing a live stream like Chris is doing, or, hey, I need to book some shows and get my band playing again. That would really drive the excitement and engagement with our community. Or maybe it's like, I need to get more serious about releasing tracks. And I've got a personal goal of releasing at least one track a month this year, and also trying to do more collaborations with other artists, like real collaborations where we're like, hey, this is a great way for us to reach each other's audiences. But figure out what that is for you. And like authentic storytelling is key. Like it clarifies your brand and keeps you creating around what is uniquely you. Oftentimes, if you have that clear brand picture, that story, it helps you understand what marketing playground you get to play in, and it unleashes a lot of creativity.
And just as a side note to that, remember always with marketing and with being an artist, what you do will never resonate with everyone, and it shouldn't. It's like, tell that story, find that community, make your efforts around your obsession and your particular interest, because the more passionate you are about sort of a niche thing, I think it's almost easier to find your niche diehard followers.
Captain Charlie, I think, wins the comment section today. The best question I've ever been asked was, why are you here? It was asked curiously and kind, and it's a question I revisit frequently. Why am I here? Why am I making this? What is the purpose? Those are good things to ask. Yeah, I think often, like we've just been told we made something, so go to social media and just do whatever, and that's not cutting it. One thing that on here, like creating micro communities, so much of the independent world over the years, Chris mentioned earlier that he and I have been in independent music distribution for a combined total of 40 years. That was a combined total,
Combined,
people.
yes,
Combined.
We both started when we were 6 years old.
That's right. That a lot of times we see an artist, independent artist, start really surging and seeing success because they've been in a community that rallies around them and supports them. And it's not necessarily a music-based community. We've seen this in the gaming world. We've seen this in other communities online, whether it's politics, or we saw one artist that we interviewed years ago. They were really well known in an anime community.
Oh, right.
And then that community rallied around that artist. And so thinking about creating micro communities or participating in them, and then collaborating with other creators. I think one of the things that gets underutilized in a streaming world is that, Chris, like when we have our collaborative track that I just sent you last night, that's going to be a big hit. When we post it, it'll show up on my profile and your profile, meaning we reach each other's audiences. And those kind of things can be great to expand your reach, grow your musical career around the music and around releasing music and the things that we want to be about.
Yep. Similar to your suggestion for me to have guests on my live stream. Side note here, Gary, if you need affordable mastering solution, you should download the BandLab app because there's some incredible mastering tools in there.
Yeah. And lastly, oops, there's a BandLab on this slide.
Oh, look at it. It's a
see, it's a combo. It's
a crossfade.
Yeah. It's a collaboration. I think this was a good quote. Because I said it. People don't just listen to music, they connect with it. Fans are drawn to artists who create a sense of belonging, meaning, and shared experience. And I think when you lean into those things, when you understand the power of music, that things will happen. You're on your own timeline. It's your own journey. You can't compare your journey to everyone else's. You can't compare your journey to an artist that's being mass marketed, like a Coldplay, because that's the artist I reference all the time, not somebody else. We need a Coldplay tally now.
Yeah.
But those are the things that really get people connected and make them there and along for the ride and want to be a part of what you're doing.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say in response to this slide is, if we are here for the lifetime journey and the discovery and the skill building, the expression, we're going to be here anyways, then why not have these SMART goals along the way so that, even if it doesn't lead to Taylor Swift, number 5, size, fame, and stardom and wealth, at least there's measurable progress towards that goal, and it's going to be a true journey of progress.
Yeah. The original version of this slide I had said people aren't looking to be sold something. And I think oftentimes as artists, we release something and that's what we become as salespeople. And that's not what people are looking for. We have enough stuff being sold to us all the time. And that sort of cheapens the relationship with music and art and the artists that we love. What we want is that connection, that meaning, that belonging, that you are a part of our tribe. And I think that artists that are doing that well, there's lots of examples of that, just create these rabid fan bases that can never get enough.
I like, where did it go? I like this as a perhaps concluding sentiment too. Our audience want to be loved and cared for too. I mean, that if you keep that sentiment working in tandem with all your marketing stuff, it's not just about us, the artist, and people adoring and paying us. We can love our audience in return, and that's kind of how you build engagement and community.
Larissa asked, hey guys, I missed the start. When can I catch the replay? As soon as we hit end, it'll be live on YouTube, but you have to click the live tab. It's not under the regular videos tab. I don't know why they do that, but it'll be there. And yeah.
Another good quote. Yeah, this has been really great today. So many people have contributed inspiring quotes. Look at this one. Love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Mark's asking for links. Yeah. Another thing, just always, whenever we have these, which is every Thursday, please keep doing what you're doing and talk to each other. A lot of times the funnest part about Kevin and I used to run a conference. We used to have a podcast. It's always fun to see what the audience does when they meet each other. They go on tour together. They make new albums together. So this is great. Thanks for communicating with each other.
Again, this has been the Music Career Study Group. We're here every week, Thursdays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. And if you really want to be in the know, we jump on Instagram live right after this for the after party. We do an abbreviated version of this. It can be wild over there.
Sometimes people like to talk about conspiracy theories.
Yeah, who knows? Sometimes I don't know why they're there, but they're there. So yeah, it can be fun. So we'll be over there in about 5 minutes. Any closing comments, Chris? What do we know what next week's topic is?
Oh, okay. We agreed on it, but now
we did create a list.
Let's see. I'm scrolling back. Anyone want to do the hold music?
And again, I'm at K Bruner on all the places. I'm usually on Instagram or X. Chris is at Chris Robley. I'm dropping them in there again. Oh man, I can't type.
All
it's
right.
like you can't type when people are watching you. It's a known fact.
Okay, next week is going to be, ready?
Yes.
I'm putting it in the comments.
Okay.
An email strategy to supercharge your super fans.
So some people asked questions about email. We're going to be talking about that next week. And Chris has done some really great stuff with that. I have big expectations for that session.
Well, I'll try not to disappoint you.
Please don't. Please don't.
You missed it if you're just tuning in now, but as soon as we hit the end button, you can watch the replay. So
yeah,
I hope you will. And see some of you over on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next week.
See ya. Thanks all.